It was a Friday morning, June 5, 2026. Between breakfast and lunch, over $1 trillion simply evaporated from Wall Street. The immediate trigger flashing across electronic displays at the New York Stock Exchange was fear. Inflation is up across global balance sheets, and investors panicked over a looming U.S. Federal Reserve rate hike. But a single rate hike threat rarely wipes out $1 trillion by noon. The market has become incredibly top-heavy, dominated by AI tech giants. That extreme concentration makes the entire system hypersensitive to sudden economic shocks. This scale visualization shows the magnitude of that risk. The combined market cap of the top 10 AI-linked tech stocks has ballooned past $28 trillion. That single sector is now larger than the entire GDP of China. Shankar Iyer, writing in the New Indian Express, points out that these volatile market swings are symptoms of a larger condition. He identifies a terrifying, overarching global drift. The sheer scale of these AI giants means a single sector now dictates the stability of the global market. It creates a vulnerability where traditional diversification no longer provides a reliable buffer against panic. The financial chaos directly mirrors geopolitical chaos. Consider the unresolved war in West Asia, now stretching past 100 days, with smoke rising over the Hormuz Strait. Current diplomacy is stuck in a loop of bizarre definitions. The U.S. president has publicly described a ceasefire in the region as a situation where, quote, "you're shooting in a more moderate manner." Global trade suffers from the exact same chaos. 432 days after Liberation Day, the U.S. continues to weaponize Section 301 of its Trade Act. It has slammed massive tariffs on 60 different countries under the pretext of halting goods produced with forced labor. World leaders are operating entirely without a playbook. They have no coherent strategy to end the wars or the tariff chaos, and this vacuum of political leadership drives the intense volatility in the markets. How does a global vacuum impact a rapidly growing nation like India? Recently, the government reported a solid 7.7% GDP growth for the previous year. Yet, on that very same morning, the Reserve Bank downgraded its forecast for the coming year to just 6.6%. This chart shows the broader consequence of a stalling economy. India began the decade as the fifth largest economy, but has slipped to sixth place with a GDP of $3.76 trillion. It sits a slight nudge away from dropping behind France into seventh. A catalyst for this domestic slide is the Indian rupee. It plunged 10% in a single year, tumbling to 95 against the US dollar, driven heavily by foreign institutional investors selling off their assets. To stem the bleeding, the Reserve Bank rolled out a familiar response. They opened long tenure bonds to foreign investors, hoping to lure dollars back. Proponents of this move immediately point out that this exact strategy successfully saved a crashing rupee back in September of 2013. This shows why the 2013 strategy worked. India's policy rate was 7.5%, while the US rate hovered near zero, making Indian deposits lucrative. But by 2026, India's rate is 5.25%, and the US rate climbed to 3.75. The gap has disappeared. The bait is too weak. External shocks neutralized India's standard economic defenses, leaving the Reserve Bank with few levers to combat the current crisis. It is easy to blame a plunging currency and global tariff wars for a stalling economy. However, pointing to external shocks serves as a convenient smokescreen for massive domestic failures. Look at this visualization of domestic capital to see the internal rot. India's private sector is sitting on a stagnant cash pile of around 15 lakh crore rupees. Instead of investing that capital, the country maintains an incredibly low rate of R&D spending. The government mirrors this exact paralysis. Massive state funds, including the 1 lakh crore rupee Research Development Fund and the Urban Challenge Fund, remain completely undispersed. The root cause of this gridlock is a severe regulatory quagmire. Developers are forced to secure over 100 approvals and permits just to build a basic solar project or a hospital. India's economic stalling originates right at home. It is actively manufactured through extreme institutional paralysis and an absolute refusal to modernize bureaucracy. The same systemic gridlock seen in macroeconomics has a direct human parallel in the lives of the Indian youth. Take the devastating saga of the national paper leaks. In December 2025, a parliamentary standing committee stated the National Testing Agency did not inspire confidence. Despite receiving advanced warning, authorities took zero action to secure the process. By 2026, the entire examination system failed catastrophically, proving the committee right. How does a country renowned for producing tech CEOs who manage billion-dollar global enterprises fail to design a basic, secure testing system for its own students? Because educational institutions suffer from the exact same inertia as the economic ones, overhauling a broken system requires taking on political risk, and currently, no one will act. Market volatility on Wall Street and administrative failures in India both emerge from a shared lack of decisive leadership. In Iyer's view, these systems are drifting because the people at the top are choosing not to intervene. As Shankar Iyer points out, quoting Margaret Heffernan, silence is the language of inertia. This silence is actively nurtured by a politics of complicity. Across global diplomacy and domestic ministries, leaders consistently choose the quiet safety of inaction over the hard work of solving complex problems. Until domestic institutions break this silence and make decisive choices, India will remain adrift, a permanent victim of global shocks rather than master of its future. To explore these overarching issues deeply, read Shankar Iyer's columns in the New Indian Express.